Can we truly solve the greatest conundrum in all of history, once and for all? I'm talking about the dip in popularity of Kiss in the early 80s. I already made a video about me being against that they took their makeup off in 1983. But were Kiss always going to take a dive in popularity? Regardless of what they did in 1979 to 1982, most Kiss fans claim their popularity fell because of Dynasty, Unmasked, and The Elder. But is that really the reason? Wouldn't Kiss have still dipped in popularity, even after Love Gun, and they made 5 more Love Guns instead? Now, to me, as a super Kiss fan, I personally don't think that Kiss were a fluke, or that they just got lucky to become popular. Kiss were always awesome to me, and their cool makeup, costumes, attitude, music, and stage shows are what made them amazing. But did the general public think that? Maybe not. Unless you were a big Kiss fan in the 70s, I think most people did think that Kiss were a neat gimmick. And after years and years of fame, it just became stale to people. But Kiss fans love Kiss, and we think that it must have been because of complicated reasons why Kiss took a dive in popularity. But the average person on the street who knows practically nothing about Kiss really only knows them from their makeup designs, maybe Gene's tongue, and the 2 songs Rock and Roll All Night and Beth. That average peanut gallery person may think Kiss is super cool for maybe 3 or 4 years, but eventually won't give a crap anymore. And I think that's what happened. I don't think it's because of Phantom of the Park, the movie. I don't think it's because of the mixed reception of Dynasty or whatever. It was just going to have a lull. Kiss had done it. They became superstars. The goal was reached. They really could not have conceivably become any bigger than what they were in 1977 to 1978. The Phantom of the Park movie made them even bigger stars because of the excitement of a Kiss movie, and got young kids in the 70s super into Kiss. So that's why I don't think anything's wrong with Phantom of the Park. I actually think it's a great movie, but that's not the point. I don't think that Phantom and Dynasty made Kiss lame to people, because the same people always thought that Kiss were lame. It didn't matter what they did, or how tough they dressed, or the lyrics to their music. Kiss always had people that thought they sucked. What was amazing of Phantom of the Park, Dynasty, Unmasked, and The Elder is that Kiss were now fully embracing and flaunting their own form of cool. They finally decided to not be embarrassed of who they are as a band. They want to make a silly, funny movie? Well then, here you go. They want to make albums that sound more pop? Then here you go. Try an experimental concept album? Well, here you go. There were lots of fans, even back then, that loved that 1978 to 1982 period of Kiss, and still aren't embarrassed to love the stuff they made in those years. The problem was that they thought that they were popular enough to be as creative and weird as possible, without losing lots of money. They stopped caring about the risks, because they wanted to embrace who they really are. They are the rebels that like to wear colorful clothing, that like to be on TV, make pop music, etc. They only gave off the illusion that they were tough guys in the past, because they were trying to become popular. But it was never who they really were. They were a flashy, flamboyant, glam rock super band, not ashamed of wearing makeup like women and wearing high heels like women. That's what Kiss really were, which is why when the 79-82 period happened, there were still lots of Kiss fans that loved that stuff, but it was too weird and eccentric for the casuals. I guess the casual Kiss fans who mistakenly thought that they were always something else instead. Now, I could be wrong, but it's something to think about. Were there any actual mistakes made? Weren't Kiss always going to implode? And if the answer is yes, then they may as well go all out, doing crazy, outlandish, wild things, like make a TV movie, make a concept album, wear more creative outfits. It wasn't Kiss being ridiculous to me, because I embraced that they were Kiss, and I loved them for not giving a crap if people didn't like what they were doing. Was it really the biggest voice of them being less popular or cool from actual Kiss fans? Or was it from the peanut gallery? Maybe a bit of both. But wasn't it more the peanut gallery? Were there lots of Kiss fans that thought they understood Kiss, but they really didn't? I guess everyone in the 70s had their own interpretation of what Kiss is. And I think that's one of the coolest things about being a Kiss fan. It seemed that they were always trying to get as much of a diverse fan base as humanly possible, even in the early 70s. This is why I'm saying that it never really mattered if they went disco, or made a corny TV movie, or a pop record, or whatever. Kiss were always going to fall off a cliff. The biggest question was just when. It's just that they needed a lot of time for the peanut gallery public to miss them. This is why the reunion in 1996 was so massive. It was like, hey, remember those weirdos from the 70s with those wacky face paint? Well, they're back. Only the most hardcore Kiss nerds were still big fans of them in those middle years, the 79 to 82 era, the non-makeup era of the 80s and early 90s. Everyone else, including the casual Kiss fans, just always thought that they were a fad. It pisses me off, because they were always more than a fad to me, and to us hardcore fans. But we have to come to terms with the truth. Honestly, most music fans don't give a crap about Kiss, and think they're a overrated, goofy, embarrassing band from the 70s. Maybe the problem was some of the 80s and 90s mentality during that time. A lot of attitudes and things were somehow less weird and odd in the 80s and 90s compared to the 70s. It's like everything was strange and weird and very odd about the 1970s. This is why Kiss fit in so well with the 70s decade, a time when weird was the norm. Richard Nixon was weird. Star Wars was weird. Disco was weird. And Kiss were weird. The 70s was a magical time. If Kiss never was created in 1973 and emerged for the very first time in 1985 and wore the makeup, costumes, still the Fab Four, Gene, Peter, Paul, and Ace, would they really be as popular as they were in the 1970s? Probably not. It seems that the mid-90s were really the perfect time for the reunion to happen. During the mid to late 90s, people were embracing being weird again, and stuff that was edgy, strange, and over the top was now in vogue in pop culture. So Kiss was welcomed back and fully embraced, because much of the 90s kind of felt like a return to the 70s again. So it was never the artistic decisions that killed Kiss from 1979 to 1982. It was the 80s that killed Kiss, and they didn't know how to handle it. That's why they took their makeup off and stopped being Kiss. It was sad. The dream had died that they held on to for so long, only until the right time in pop culture for them to return. The casual Kiss fans were gonna care. The late 1990s. They truly abandoned the hardcore Kiss fans when they removed their classic makeup in 1983. Which brings another super important question. Was it that they really never cared about the hardcore fans? Or was it now, in the mid-80s, they just decided to not care about them? It's a tough question to answer, and we may possibly never get an answer to that. But anyway, let me know your thoughts and opinions. And thanks for watching, Kiss Army. Please like and subscribe, and please hit that notification bell so that you don't miss any of my uploads. My name is ThePatrickL.PeckShow, and rock and roll all night and party every day.